We're here with Tad Hardgrave from Marketing for Hippies. We've just finished an afternoon workshop at Naked Dragon. So first question for you, Tad. What did you think of your first Naked Dragon experience?
I loved it. It was really fun. What a delightful venue and good people. Yeah, I liked it.
Excellent, excellent. So what will you be taking away with you from today's visit to deepest, darkest Surrey?
Oh, heavens. That's a good question. Google Places, that came up in the workshop, is an important thing. And yeah, forget about that one, but it's a useful tool that businesses can use.
Absolutely. It's almost a standalone workshop, isn't it?
Yeah, I know, that's the thing. There's so much content to cover in marketing that, like, each little piece,
I know.
like talking about doing a blog or talking about doing talks as a way to get, or social media. I'm like, each one of those is like a weekend that we could spend.
Absolutely, and there's so much rich content there that can be expanded upon. It's just like touching the surface of all of these different subjects, isn't it?
Yeah,
absolutely.
But that's the thing, because I find actually what a lot of holistic practitioners and conscious entrepreneurs need is a kind of 101 level overview. Because there are so many different ways you could promote your business, and I think then people can get lost in any one particular one. And I think what so many people need is just a big picture, an overview of here's all the things, here's the general map of how they relate to each other, and then people can start to pick instead of having this sort of siloed approach where it's like a bunch of different particular things.
Absolutely, because it gives far more room for people to be authentic within that map.
That's interesting. Right, because then they can choose how they want to relate or where they want to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I see it where people will go to a workshop and they say, you have to do social media, you have to, and it's like, you don't. I mean, it's useful today, but, or you have to do public speaking, and then you get somebody who's like, I'm really shy and I don't like speaking in public, but I guess I'll build my lifestyle out of that. And then they suffer every day.
But everybody has an authentic voice, but how that voice is actually expressed can be different ways for different people. So for some people it will be public speaking, for other people it will be blogging, for other people it'll just be a very quick tweet. Because they're not really into writing great big reams. I know personally I'm a huge fan of blogging, and I just love to write. And you mentioned in the workshop about having so many subjects to talk about. Like you, I've got hundreds of things that I can talk about. My biggest challenge is actually finding the time to take these ideas from here or where I've written them down to actually put them on paper into my blog. Because I could just spend my whole time writing, and maybe that's what I could be doing, spending my whole time writing. So yeah, it's finding the balance, I think, really between doing all of this stuff and then actually getting on and running your business.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like why I'm really into this idea lately of slow marketing. You know, we have the slow food movement, the slow fashion movement, and that just like we're busy. We've got such full lives, and so can we slow it down and like take our time with these things? Because we just may not be able to do everything, and that's okay. And I think sometimes there's this pressure of like, I need to do everything. I have to have my blog and social media, and be doing speeches and have everything so perfect. And that's just not always the case or possible.
Actually, talking of slow marketing, what would be your advice for somebody who's just qualified as a therapist or some other type of holistic practitioner, and they want to get their message out there quickly? I totally get the slow marketing because I personally believe that is the way to go. But they need clients. So where is the balance there between taking it slowly, allowing your brand to build and to get yourself out there, but at the same time being able to bring in the business quick enough to sustain body and soul?
Well, it's funny. This isn't something we talked about in the workshop today, but I feel like the short course is. So there's this idea that, there are people on Island A, they want to be on Island B, and they've got some problem on Island A, there's something they're craving on Island B, they're sick, they want to be healthy. And so the first thing is to pick one particular group to focus on. So let's say with yoga, it's like if our business is the boat that takes them from Island A to Island B, yoga's a boat. And there's a lot of people do yoga. But then I would do what's called like a niche project. So instead of trying to like brand your whole business, just pick one particular niche, one particular group, or a particular issue, and do like a yoga series around that. So like I've seen yoga, there's prenatal, postnatal, there's yoga for alcoholics, yoga for yoga and chocolate, yoga with cello playing, yoga with drums playing, yoga with country music, where they took like mainstream country music, but then pulled out the like kind of mystical Christian origins of that and tied that into yoga. So yoga for rednecks kind of. But to pick a particular focus, yoga for round bodies, where there was a woman who just had a more round body as a yoga teacher, and she was tired of going to yoga classes where she looked totally different and where they couldn't adapt the poses for her. And she did these classes just for those people who were so happy and grateful. So to pick like one...
Really niche it.
Yeah, pick a real particular niche, do a project, something specific on that,
yeah.
and then find hubs, find people who are already connected to that target market, and just as quickly as possible build relationships with them and see if they can help support and promote it. You could, in a week, have a turnaround on something like that. Or in a month, but then it's also, if it's something you're really passionate about, you can get known for that, and that can be a repeat thing. Because sometimes people will do sort of generic stuff for a while, experiment working with a bunch of different people, but they have one or two niches that they keep kind of coming back to, and that can end up being kind of a bread and butter situation, or what they're known for, and can build long term. But I wouldn't recommend, because there's the long term strategic piece, and sometimes that just takes a while to figure out. It's taken me a while. But in the meantime, I just feel like pick something specific and small and do something small. Don't try to build an empire. Just build a little project that you can start and finish. And that also builds confidence, too, because then people are like, oh, I did that, and all these people came.
Yeah. That's really good advice. Really good advice. So you talked as well in the workshop about the reasons why people do what they do.
Yeah.
So if I asked you the same question, why does TAD do what TAD does?
Because I think the world is, I feel like there are two big challenges we face in the world. One is the end of civilization as we know it, but the other is the continuation of civilization as we know it. And just clearly what we're doing isn't working. It's the collapse of ecosystems, and it's just terrible what's happening. And so we need something else. We need some alternative economy. And that's happening on a lot of levels. But I see that so many conscious entrepreneurs, like we'd love to make all of our money in the more conscious economy, green, local, sustainable. We'd love to just spend all of our money there. And yet, it's hard. And I feel like marketing is one of those stopgaps for people. And I just feel like if everyone who did permaculture and holistic work and had a green business was a marketing ninja, was a whiz, was really good at it, we'd have more people knowing about these alternatives. It'd be easier to find it. I just feel like this conscious economy would be growing so much faster. I feel like the lack of understanding of marketing and the resistance to it is part of what holds this conscious economy back and keeps it marginal. And I just feel like this world needs that so much. And I get to travel and meet cool people.
Well,
cool things, so,
absolutely. Because we have a lot of people coming along to the events, and I talk to a lot of our guests, and so many of them have said, I had a really successful corporate career, I'm used to earning an absolute fortune.
Totally.
I decided, wake-up call one day, I wanted to follow my heart and my passion, and so I've chosen a much more holistic route to market, and stepped out of the rat race almost and following a different path. However, I'm now totally skint. So in your experience and your belief, do you believe it's possible to be holistic and spiritual and financially abundant? I don't mean abundant in all the wonderful things in life, because I believe that we are all abundant. We're like kids in a playground, actually. We don't really appreciate the abundance that's around us constantly. But for this mentality that seems to be, you're either corporate, you've sold your soul, you're earning lots of money in exchange, or you're holistic, you're spiritual, and you're skinned. Where's the happy medium with financial abundance?
Yeah, with the money piece.
Yeah, the money. Yeah.
I think there's a certain reality in, like, let's say you're a restaurant and you want to do the right thing. You want to buy organic cleaners and chemical-free stuff, and you want to have all organic, you want to hand make everything, that costs more.
Absolutely.
So I think when people stop exploiting the planet and stop using slave labor or cheap labor, the costs go up. So I think profitability does go down. I think there's a reality of that. And it's like Gandhi had the things that there's enough in the world for everybody's need, but not enough for everybody's greed. And so to me, the real question it gets down to is this quality of life issue, because sometimes people think they need money to have something when they could have it without money, or they think they need to. There's this sort of myth like, I need to wait till I'm retired and I have enough money and then I can live this great quality of life. When sometimes they could actually have that quality of life now. But I do think it's possible to meet our needs and in a really good way, and have our businesses be thriving and financially sustainable in a way that meets our needs. I don't know, at what level, like how much is too much, or how much is, what's the level where it taps out. But yeah, I do think it's possible. Like I make a great living doing what I do. At least for me, it's great. I don't know if I had a family, it might not be enough, but it feels really wonderful for me. And every year gets a little easier, and I make more money, I think, every year.
So your model of people paying what they believe it's been worth to them, like your weekend workshop, that model is working for you then financially. It's been working for you.
Well, and it's part of it is it's part of the, like we talk about the sales funnel where you have like those sort of bronze, silver, gold levels. So I've got the weekend workshop, and that's pay what you can. Most of my workshops are pay what you can. But then I have I do have some workshops that aren't pay what you can. If people want to work with me one-on-one, it's $200 an hour. I've got products online that I just sell at a flat rate. So it's a part of the equation, but it's not necessarily the whole thing. But that was basically all I did for years. And I didn't starve, I did well. I was able to travel to, and it's funny, a lot of my friends have come to me and be like, how do you do this? Like, how do you you travel all around the world, you do these workshops, and it didn't occur to me that was extraordinary, because I was like, I just have to work, so I go to places where they want me, and but yeah, it's worked really well, and it feels really good, and it works well on a lot of levels. The money is good, when I do a weekend workshop, especially if there are enough people, of the profit margin, I do well financially. It's like I'll make, I don't know, on average in a weekend I'll probably make depends on the type of weekend, but it's been between, let's say, $300 to $800 per person, depending on the length and what's included. So I've made everywhere from I'll make 5,000 to 10,000, 15,000 on a weekend. So if I do a few of those a year,
it helps to subsidise the rest of the year, and the introductions, which obviously don't earn as much money, but it encourages people to come along to the weekends.
Yeah, and so and then I'll do the one-on-one stuff, and I do stuff virtually, and I have products I sell now. So the more robust that ecosystem has become in my business, the more sustainable it's been for me. But pay what you can works really well in terms of, it's much easier to sell a weekend. If I was like, this is £1,000 to come to the weekend, I have to do a whole pitch about building up the value, versus pay what you can. It's like, if you like this, just come, And pay what you can, especially in the conscious kind of hippie community, is way better for word of mouth. People are much more comfortable say, hey, go to this workshop, it's pay what you can, versus trying to tell their friends to go to something that's really expensive.
Do you think that model could work for any business?
It works in a lot of businesses. There are dozens of restaurants around the world that are pay what you can, where you just go, and when you get the bill, it says zero, or it's like, hey, your meal was paid for by the people before you.
I've never heard of a pay what you can afford restaurant.
Yeah, there are a ton of them. There's Bon Jovi, the music artist, opened one in Jersey called Soul Kitchen. The Radiohead released one of their albums in rainbows online on a pay what you can basis. They just let people download it for whatever they wanted to pay. Magazines have done pay what you can promotions. Hotels have done pay what you can. So it's actually I was shocked when we did this. I did a workshop about pay what you can stuff in San Francisco. How rude that my cell phone is on. But yeah, so I've actually been shocked at how many different industries pay what you can has worked in. And been used in much more than you would think.
I did do that once when I launched the Inspirational Film Circle through Naked Dragon. That was pay what you can. But I think something like that takes a while to actually take off, and I probably didn't run that for long enough.
Well, I don't know if
it's the covering your costs.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the amount of time. I think I learned a lot. Nobody else did pay what you can. All my colleagues were kind of like, you're crazy for doing it. So I had to learn a lot about how to do pay what you can, because there is a way to do it where you just lose money all the time, and it actually feels gross to be on the receiving end of it. It feels like a lot of pressure of what am I going to pay? And then there's a way to do it that actually works. And so I've had to learn a lot about how to make sure that the value of what we're doing is established. Taking time at the end of the weekend to really talk about the pay what you can. One of the biggest shifts I made was, instead of having people just pay whatever they wanted at the end based on the cash on pocket, doing it as inviting them to pay with 4 checks. And kind of setting it up like that. So you pay once the weekend, 3 post-date up till a year. So when I first did it, I was making $150, $200 per person. And then I made it 3 checks over 6 months, and that was $300, $400. And then when I made it 4 checks, it was $600 to $800 I tended to get. So it's so I've had to learn a lot about how to do it and how to set it up, Because I think most people think, oh, pay what you can, so they just do it and then put money in a bucket at the end.
Yeah.
And there's, in my experience, there's so much more to it of how it gets set up in a way that feels really good for everybody and is also sustainable for me.
So do you get very many people turn up and say, well, actually, I can only afford a tenner to have?
Some people, yeah, and that's great. That's fine. Because I just feel like, the rich get richer in the world, the poor get poorer, and that is more and more every day. And then the rich can afford to go to workshops where they can learn how to make more money.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and people who are doing the most important, productive, revolutionary work in the world don't even hear about these workshops. And if they go on their credit cards, or they borrow money from their mom who just retired. And and I just feel like this needs to be accessible. And there are times when people come, and I'm just like, I do get the sense like, oh, you took advantage of this. It's rare, but sometimes I do get that really clear feeling, and I just don't work with them again, or they're not on my list anymore. But almost, I've had people come up to me being like, yeah, I can afford, this is it. Like, I can't pay my phone bill, and I just have, my money's so shaky, and so like, this is all I can give. And I'm just like, it's so wonderful. It's like, wow, they got to go, and they got to receive this, and that just, I feel like for me, there's a commitment to personal sustainability financially, but also to accessibility. That what I do is accessible. And I think there are a lot of different models. Some people do a thing where they work with a lot of rich clients, and then they can just give it away to clients who are struggling more. And there's that model. I do the pay what you can, so it's kind of a different way of doing it. So I think there are a lot of different approaches to how we keep it both accessible and reaching people who need it, but also making sure we're sustained.
So do you think it's a real leap of faith to open your business up to the pay what you can model?
Yeah, it can be. I would probably test it first.
Yeah.
I think there's strategic thoughts to it that can make it a little bit easier. I think the fact that I teach people how to make money probably means that I make more money than somebody who would do like a health workshop on a pay what you can basis, or they would have to think about it differently probably. So it's a bit leap of faith, but I don't know. It's worked really well for me, and it was good because when I was starting, I just felt like I was apprenticing. I knew I was still learning a lot about marketing as I was teaching, and so like the first workshops, I got paid less, but that's appropriate, and it's been more over time. I wouldn't necessarily recommend pay what you can for everybody for every situation at all.
Or perhaps have part of your business, which is pay what you can.
Yeah, it can be great, especially for intro stuff and like for building up a client base.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to promote it. Yeah,
it's a good idea. How long have you been doing this?
About 10 years. The first 5 years were sort of on and off, part-time, and then the last 6 years has been more full-time.
Wonderful, wonderful. So you're about halfway through your UK trip this time round. You're back on 9th of April.
9th of April.
So with your trip to date so far, what will be the main thing that you'll be taking away with you from this trip?
When I visited the TARDIS for
Doctor Who conference.
I went to the Doctor Who convention.
In my hometown.
I got to go on the actual TARDIS. It was amazing. It was like a childhood dream. And we got to touch everything. We could take pictures. I got my picture with Matt Smith, the Doctor.
Hey.
This marketing stuff has been wonderful, but the Doctor Who convention is that's what I'll take.
That's a real reason why you're here, isn't it?
It is actually. Well, it's funny. I knew I was going to come back in the spring at some point. And I was like, I don't know when in the spring I'm going to come back. And I was like, I don't know. And but then I saw the Doctor Who convention. I was like, we will build this tour
around the Doctor Who.
So that's what happened.
Oh, well, I hope the next time you decide to build your whole tour around coming back to visit Naked Dragon Tad.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for being here and for granting us this interview. And
thank you so much.
Enjoy the rest of your trip. Thank you very much. Lovely to meet you. Thank you.